But the mass exodus that we see that is happening, the massive numbers of people live in the Caribbean or want to leave the Caribbean to go to the United States is not normal. People are running away from bad environments, bad situations, bad circumstances that are created by themselves and more so by the political electorate that represent them. And blessings on everyone listening to this broadcast. Now, generally, there appears to be an anti Trump sentiment in many countries of the world, and the Caribbean is no exception. Now, one of the reasons people have some kind of resentment to President Trump is because of his general demeanor, especially the things that he say and how he says them. Some people see him as being unpresidential, and they believe that he does not carry himself or conduct himself in a way that the former president of the United States conducted themselves. Again, that sentiment is also present in the Caribbean. But one of the reasons, or one of the strongest reasons I believe that Caribbean people have a problem with President Trump, it is because of his stance and the way in which he expresses the thoughts of deporting Caribbean people along with others. It is almost like he doesn't really care about the circumstances under which people live in the United States. It doesn't matter to him that these people are even contributing towards the economy of the United States of America. But his thing is, in order to appease and to satisfy a certain percentage of the people who voted for him, he is strongly pushing out the idea of deportation of some people, and Caribbean people are among those people. And so, because of that stance, where he feels like, oh, he doesn't even really care about the people's circumstances, but he just wants them deported. There are a lot of people who are angry and disappointed with him for his immigration stance and his immigration policies. Now, among the Caribbean people and others, one of the reasons I think that sentiment is there is because people know that the presence of some of the people in America, Caribbean people, is helping the Caribbean economy. It is helping people individually. There are people, the countries are getting remittances as a result of the people who are living in the United States. There are people who are benefiting monthly from the people who live in America. And so there is that, it is almost like a fear and a concern that if these things that Trump is saying, these things about deportation, has to go full effect, it will definitely affect people personally. And I believe that is one of the reasons why people have a strong anti-Trump sentiment. Now, although people may feel a certain way about President Trump, for the most part, the vexation that people feel should be more directed against the leaders, the Caribbean leaders. Because for the most part, it is because of the mismanagement or the bad management of the Caribbean and the resources of the Caribbean that we have so many people live in the Caribbean to go to places where they think that living will be easier for them. Regardless of what is happening, there are people who will be going to other countries. We know that there are people who will be going to the United States for school, for work, or different other things for on vacation. But the mass exodus that we see that is happening, the massive numbers of people live in the Caribbean or want to leave the Caribbean to go to the United States is not normal. People are running away from bad environments, bad situations, bad circumstances that are created by themselves and more so by the political electorate that represent them. Now, when you look at the history books, you will realize that the leaders of the Caribbean in the 60s going up, probably to the 80s, these men were statesmen, men and women, statesmen. They were generally people who were concerned about the development of their people and their country. But in this modern era, many of the people who represent us are actually there to represent themselves and their friends and companies also. There are very few politicians in the Caribbean who are actually concerned about the economic well being of the people of the communities. There are some of them that are exceptionally good. They are good statesmen, good politicians in the Caribbean, but they are very few and far between. Now, here are some of the things that some of our Caribbean politicians do that actually cause people to run, literally run, leave these countries and go to places like North America. One of the things that they do is political victimization. That is rampant in the Caribbean. You do not vote for a certain political party, they win the elections, and they know that you did not vote for them. There are certain jobs that you will not get. They will even try to block you from getting into the public service. They will try their best to stop you. And these are some of the things that they do. There was a particular situation that I know about personally, where there is a man who actually came to complain to me concerning a certain politician. The man is actually a supporter of a certain political party who had lost the elections. Now, this guy has a son who actually goes to school overseas, and he had to send some money every month for the child. And so he would just find a way to get into the um, talk to certain ministers or ministries to see if there was anything that he could get, any job that he could get. And there was this particular politician who would actually track this man to find out if he has a job or any little contract that he has and to stop him, stop the contract. And based on what the guy told me, the victim, he said that the man actually met him and told him that he's going to stop him, literally stop him from eating in the country. And this particular man, I mean, he looked like he was really frustrated. He had reached his end. And he was actually telling me what he planned to do to this person. He was planning to do physical harm to this minister. And I had to convince him not to get involved in those kind of activities because remember, it is priority for him to take care of his children and all of those things. And so I was able to kind of coax him into changing his mind and his approach for revenge. But these are some of the things that the people do. The politicians, some of them will go to great extent to make sure that certain people do not get jobs, do not get work, do not get contracts in the country. Now, there are cases where the politicians are not even inclined to do those things. The politicians sometimes they are busy doing their things, and in their minds they believe that other people who do not vote for them are supposed to be able to benefit from the country also. But the strong supporters of these politicians sometimes are the ones who cause them and push them and threaten them and therefore cause them to deprive certain people of opportunities, people who didn't vote for them. There are supporters who will tell these politicians that if they allow certain people to get a job or a contract, they are going to stop supporting them and they are going to actually turn against them and rebel against them or whatever threats that um, they may um, they may come with. But sometimes the actual people on the ground, the ordinary man, the ordinary voter, is very instrumental in getting some of these politicians to victimize people. But there are politicians also who take it on their own and they believe that when somebody does not vote for them or did not vote for them, that person does not deserve to eat, does not deserve to drink, and his children supposed to die in the country. And so they create that environment where they stop certain people and they have to run out of the country. There are people, by virtue of their campaign that they run against a winning government, they know that they have to leave the country immediately because they know that they will not eat in that country. And these are the things that happen in the Caribbean countries. And most of the Caribbean countries are involved in that kind of practice. And so political victimization by the political leaders, the people who actually won the elections, are some of the reasons that people actually leave the country. Another reason why people leave the Caribbean to go to places like the United States to see if they can survive is because the country is economically dry. Because some politicians, not all, some politicians have actually diverted the economic life, the economic water from the country and created their personal dams. It is almost like when you construct in a dam sometimes, you divert the water to the dam and then you allow water to continue flowing down to the lower part of the river. Well, in these cases, what happened is the politicians sometimes, when they construct their dams are so big. That means they take so much out of the economic strength of the country that there is nothing or hardly anything left. There is nothing left, not even bones. So people have to leave and go to other place where they think that they can survive. And these things are done in different ways. You see, what happens is people, politicians in the Caribbean have created or they have used their minds to create, to design ways, they engineer ways and means of drying the country and filling in their personal dams with the economic strength of the country. And so, because of that, there's nothing left for the people. One of the ways the people do that is by these overpriced projects that you see. You will see a bridge. There are people who know what material costs, what labor costs for different projects. And you will look at a bridge and you will know at most that bridge costs at most $5 million. And then when you see the bill for that bridge, it becomes $15 million, whereas this thing costs 5 million. So what happened is these monies are finding their ways out of the real cost of the project. And some of these politicians are benefiting from that. So at the end of the day, what you get is economic dryness. You have economic dryness. And what happens is poor people's children have to work and pay these loans and these taxes for these big loans that were taken for these projects. And one set of people benefit from that. These are the things that happen. The other thing that happen is they take big loans to create projects. And so, okay, there's a loan for of $15 million from the Caribbean Development Bank, and that money is for irrigation in agriculture. So what happens is they create some kind of board or some kind of group to direct that project. The director, the assistant director, and all of the people who are on this board are people who actually are strong supporters of the minister. For example, it can be they're constructing some irrigation project, and all of the guys on at the top of the ladder are close friends of the Minister of Agriculture, for example. They take these loans from the Caribbean Development Bank. Now the project is done, and at the end of the day, at the end of the project, sometimes some of these projects are never started. Sometimes they come, they have what they normally call the soil turning project program or whatever they call it. And people never benefit from those things, but their friends got big salaries from being members of these boards or whatever that they created to establish these projects. And at the end, what happens is poor people have to pay back in taxes for all of those things. And it is only one set of people benefiting from the fat of this country. The bones. You cannot even get the bones if you are not supporters of these guys. So these are some of the reasons people get frustrated. All of these monies are coming in, big loans, big projects, even sometimes when the European Union or US aid or even the Canadians, they sponsor project. But invariably, it is the friends of these politicians that end up running these projects and benefiting from it. So at the end of this thing, people are, and the bad thing about it is the people who are trained in these areas to actually run these projects, they do not get the job. Some of those people, I know firsthand that there are politicians who will call certain supporters of their party in your constituency and ask them which political party that you support should your name come up for some job. You could have gone to England, America, Russia, whatever, and study and be the best at your field, but they will make sure that they put an incompetent person who is supporting them instead of giving the job to somebody who's actually experienced in the area or trained in the area. And these are the reasons why people leave those places and go to Trump's country. Yes, another reason why Caribbean people leave the Caribbean and go to Donald Trump's country where they may be treated badly is because some people, a lot of Caribbean people are very ambitious people. And there are certain projects that they want to establish. And so they sometimes approach government leaders in order to acquire certain government lands for the establishment of their projects. Now, in different countries, you have government entities that oversee the administration and distribution of government lands. And so one would go to those places in order to secure land for the project. But what happens to you as a Caribbean national sometimes is when you approach those people, they will find ways of blocking your projects. Yes, they will refuse sometimes to allocate lands to you, whereas the land is there. Some of them will deliberately drag on the process so that you will get frustrated and leave that project. And so, for that reason, there are people with good ideas, certain things that are burning in their hearts, and sometimes they leave and they may just go to another country and try it, or may go to a more friendly, less hostile Caribbean country to establish the project. Now, you contrast that with situations where you have Chinese people coming into the Caribbean with their business ideas and getting all the lands that they need, and sometimes at very low prices. Now, I'm going to use that situation in St. Lucia, that situation in Vieux with that land that was leased to the Chinese for 99 years. Now, I am not criticizing the project here. I am not saying that the project should not have been started. This is not the point. Because I believe that the lands that you have is supposed to be used to create employment for the people and things like that. What I'm trying to say here is simple. When a local wanted to lease land in that same area where that Chinese project was taking place, they were charging the locals around $1,200 to $1,400 per acre. That's EC dollars. $1,200 to $1,400 per acre per year. But these same lands in these same areas were leased to Chinese people for their projects for 99 US cents per acre per year. Now you can do the calculations if you want. $1 is roughly around $2.69 EC. So $1,200 to $1,400 per acre is what we charge St. Lucians for leasing lands to them in that area where that Chinese project is taking place. But then we lease that same land to this Chinese for 99 US cents per acre per year. And we give it to them for 99 years. Now observe again, I'm not trying to criticize the project. Neither am I criticizing the government or the prime minister. I want that to be clear because people have a tendency to want to blame people when anytime you say something against anything having to do with the government. You just have to take everything based on what they feel. You're supposed to just accept everything. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the same benefits that you give Chinese when they come here, give it to local investors also. There are people in the country with very good ideas. And also Caribbean people, Caribbean leaders need to stop frustrating their own people because there are people who come, St. Lucians who come, even from foreign countries, St. Lucians living in America and England and other places. They come to these ministers in order to establish certain projects that will benefit people and benefit their country, and they do not support them. And some people believe that the reason that a lot of these Caribbean leaders are not supporting these locals when they come with good plans is because they are not paying them or greasing their hands. So once the money is not passing under the table, they are not going to help the locals to implement this project. So when you really look at it, a lot of these Caribbean leaders, it appears that they are not really concerned about national development. They are concerned about their personal national development. So no matter how nice the project is, no matter how beneficial it is to the people, no matter how many people will be employed by the projects, once they cannot get a few $1 million to enter their their personal accounts, they are not going to help you to implement these projects. And so what happened is this is creating an environment where people are being frustrated And when you look at it, any man who will come with these kind of ideas and that kind of mind is a very ambitious mind. And if it is that he cannot get it in his country, he is going to go and survive in another country. This is why sometimes when these people leave the Caribbean, they excel in America, they excel in England, they excel in Germany, because they have what it takes to survive. But the people who are put there in their own countries to help them grow, to put avenues in place so that their businesses will survive, they are the ones that are blocking them. So these people, a lot of these Caribbean leaders are the reasons why people leave their country and go to America, and then sometimes they have to get humiliated by a system that is not created or was not designed to support them. Overpriced, low income housing. Overpriced, low income housing is one of the reasons, believe it or not, you will find people leaving the Caribbean and going to America and those places. So, what we have is a situation where sometimes you have these governments getting involved in constructing what they call low income housing to sell to what they consider to be low income people. But invariably, what you have in a number of these countries is, although they constructed these houses for low income people are not able to afford these houses. So, what we have is a situation where the people who can afford these houses are lawyers, teachers, the nurses, and so on. Middle class workers are the ones who can afford the low income houses that these government people are constructing. So when people look at the situation, you can tell to yourself, you know what, I'm living in this country. I do not have a house, or I do not have a good house. Let me live here and see if I can go to America to see if I can raise enough funds to build a better house or to have a good house or something like that. So this is some of the reasons why the people leave, because they want a better house to live. If they stay in this country, the quality of their life will be very bad. There is low income housing, but they cannot afford this low income housing that they have. The low income houses are such that it is lawyers and so on, and teachers and those guys who can afford those things. So people leave and they go to another country to work to see if they can afford to build a house one day. So this is what it is. Housing is very important. Housing is very important for human beings. And if it is that the person who is very ambitious cannot afford to build, to pay for a low income house, imagine houses for low income people, and somebody who's working hard cannot pay for that, and they're ambitious enough, they will want to leave the country and go to a place where they feel they can work to get those things. So believe it or not, housing is one of the reasons people leave and fly out of here and go into these countries where sometimes they are harassed, treated badly, and end up living even in worse housing situations. You know another reason Caribbean people leave the Caribbean and go to United States, Canada, and those places and get bad treatment. Why? Because they just want to work. They simply want to work. Now, when you listen to all of these Caribbean leaders when they campaign, their whole thing is jobs, jobs, and more jobs. But what we have seen is a situation where these people actually do not provide more jobs. They do not provide or create environments, some of them, for the creation of jobs. What we see happening is people even lose jobs. Some people lose jobs immediately after these people get into power. So what we see is in situations where the government, the newly elected government, um, has any power to hire or to fire, they will get rid of all the workers that were brought in by the last administration, and they will bring in the people, their strong supporters who voted for them. So what we have is like a swap. They get rid of people from their own nationals. They put them out of jobs and they bring in their supporters, not realizing or really not caring that these same people that they put out of a job have children that have to go to school and responsibilities just like everybody else, but they do not mind. These people become almost like enemies of the people that they were elected to protect or help, because they will get rid of them. And this is their method. That's the most effective tool or method a lot of these Caribbean leaders have in concerning job creation. So when those people tell you jobs, 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 you believing that they're going to find a way to get companies to create jobs here and all of that. That's not what they have in mind. What some of them have in mind is as soon as they come in, they're going to create jobs by firing and getting rid of people that they can touch and bringing in their strong supporters. So what happened is, after every change of government, you will get people, some people leave in the country because for some reason they were kicked out from a job that they, some government job that they had. And most of these jobs where they can just kick you out like that are low income jobs. Low income jobs. So they will kick somebody out of a low income jobs, a group of people, and bring in some other people, not realizing that they were brought there to create jobs for everyone. These are the things that they do. And so when you have this kind of hostile um, job environment in a country, you just creating a situation where the ambitious people or the people who can afford to buy a ticket or people who have places that they can stay in America will just get out of there. And it is seemed to be, and it appears that the most ambitious people we have sometimes, or the most trained or the most competent people, somehow are always the ones that end up living and going to these places. Now, I know that most of us, if not all of us, can recall that time when President Trump essentially called or referred to a lot of our tropical countries as shithole countries. Now, I was very much taken aback. I was not happy about the name or the nomenclature that he used to classify some of our tropical places. But when you really look at the situation carefully, some of the Caribbean countries, some of our Caribbean countries, let's just take the water, for example, the potable water, the drinking water that the people use. There have been reports that I have read, and I'm not going to mention the country or the countries, where the quality of water that the people use, it was not even fit for consumption by farm animals. Yeah, there are places in the Caribbean where the water that they give the people, the water that run through some of this pipe in some areas, not all, because in the cities, they or the places where they know the tourists are going, they make sure that they have the best quality water. But in the rural areas, their own environmental groups and agencies in the Caribbean produce reports that show that the water that is consumed in some of these areas are not even fit for consumption by farm animals. And so, should one get angry when Trump referred to some of these places as shithole countries? The other thing is, these ministers do not consume these waters. Now, again, along the same line of shithole countries, Our hospitals, there are so many times when basic and simple things that are needed by people, simple things like bed sheet, simple medication, our national hospitals do not have it. But these ministers that are here, a lot of these ministers in the Caribbean, when they get sick or even their medical checkup, they do not stay in the country. They go to Miami, they go to England, and their children, should anything happen to their children, they send them to Miami and those places. So what happened is they want the best for themselves. The water, they will not consume that water. They themselves and their children will not go to our hospitals except if it is an emergency. But this is the environment that they want for the local people, where they do not have basic things in the hospitals, and the water in some of these places are not even fit for consumption by farm animals. And so when President Trump called these places shithole countries, there are information and things that Trump know that probably the ordinary people do not know. There are people even in these countries who are aware of the quality of the water and the other health facilities. There are people who know. And there is information that people like Trump get from CIA people that ordinary people are not privy to. So even when people like him say those things, even if I'm not happy, I think and I wonder and I ponder on those things. But if you are somebody who really concerned about the Caribbean or the country that you live in, and if you're concerned about poor people and their plight and their situation and the circumstances under which they live, you will reach a point where you will not get too angry when Trump refers to some of these countries as shithole countries. Because really, some of these guys are really treating and creating bad environment for the people that are in the country, especially sometimes the people in the rural communities. Sometimes people in the rural communities, the environment that these ministers provide for them are really shitty environments for sure. So when Trump called it that, now on this point here, we are sometimes frustrated, disappointed at the treatment that our Caribbean people receive when they go to places like the United States. And we are sometimes not happy at even some of the statements made by the very president of the United States. But the thing is, the Bible says that we have to remove the plank from our eyes so that we can see clearly to take it out of another person's eye. So before we go and criticize Trump for how he deals with Caribbean people, let us examine our own selves, how Caribbean people deal with other Caribbean people. Now, in order to break down that situation and that topic, there are certain Caribbean countries that we have to focus on, their people and how the people are treated in other countries. Now, let me pick on Guyana, for example. Now, when you look at history, because a lot of people were not born at that time, but there was a time when Caribbean people, especially people I believe from the Windward Islands, were going to Guyana to work. My great grandfather spent 16 years in Guyana, working in gold and diamond and things like that. Now, there were people from Barbados and other places doing that same thing too. They were working in Guyana. Now, at that time, I believe, in the 50s, in the 60s, the currency of Guyana was very strong. And so people moved to find a better life there. But then a situation happened where the Guyana currency started falling and the economy of Guyana crumbled. And so we had a situation where even when I was going to secondary school in the 90s, you had people leaving Guyana and coming to the Caribbean, we had a point where some of our teachers were Guyanese. There was like it was just like a movement of Guyanese people coming and teach in these islands, and they were very good, professional. And we had nurses also coming from Guyana to come and work in these smaller countries or the other Caribbean countries. And they were very professional. They were very competent, very good. But there were also other people from Guyana coming, and there was almost like a hatred and a resentment among some islanders for Guyanese people at that time. They were treating Guyanese very badly, and their excuse was the Guyanese are thieves and things like that. In any set of movement, in any movement of people, you will find all kinds and all types. And even Guyanese, probably some of them were coming and committing crime just like people from all countries live and they go other places in America and they commit crime too. But because of that resentment they had for their Caribbean Guyanese brothers and sisters, they were treating Guyanese badly. I knew that for a fact. And even they are friends of mine that I have from the Bahamas. And when you hear them speak, some of them, you get the vibe that Haitians are not really respected and appreciated in Bahamas. So there is that xenophobia that is taking place in the Caribbean where there are certain nationals that they treat very badly in the Caribbean. Barbados, based on my personal experience and what I have heard from other people, Barbados seems, and I'm not saying that it is a definite thing, but it appears that Barbados has a propensity to treat other Caribbean nationals very badly in Barbados. Let me tell you about a personal experience that I had going to Barbados. I went to Barbados to get some seeds because I used to sell seeds at that time. Now, I got some documents from the Ministry of Agriculture of St. Lucia. I told them how many pounds of seeds I wanted to buy because that is very important. They have to actually give you permission to bring in those seeds, and then the agriculture people will come to the port to make sure that they clear the seeds with you or for you because they do not want bad seeds coming here and causing disease in the country. So the government of St. Lucia, through the Ministry of Agriculture, gave me this documentation, and so I went to Barbados. I had like two empty suitcases to buy seeds and other things from Barbados. So I was actually going to a store named Carter's in Bridgetown, Barbados. So when I was coming through the immigration system, there is a guy who came up to me and he told me that he was a detective and that he was investigating drugs. Then he had me go to an area where there was I think some custom people who were dressed, I think, in brown uniform. Searched me. I had to take my pants down and everything like that. Then that same detective took me to a place like a one floor up, and I was being interrogated there for probably between 45 minutes to an hour. I was supposed to go to a place named St. Lucie to see a farmer who actually grows onions so that I can actually witness the process and his field and his operation. I was not able to go because by the time I spent that whole hour there, when I came out of the interrogation and harassment chambers, it was actually too late. It was dark. So I went to a place, it was a guest house that was owned by a St. Lucian. And I was telling the man about the ordeal and the situation that I went through. Then he was telling me about a situation similar that happened to a Jamaican lady where they searched a Jamaican lady and they really berated her. They demoralized that Jamaican woman. And I think she sued the government, I think, of Barbados, the government, and they had to pay her millions of dollars. But I came there after that, and it seems like these people in Barbados, they do not learn. Somehow, when you come in to Barbados, from another Caribbean country. These Barbados people, these Bajans, somehow they believe like you are trying to get into United States of America or you're trying to get into England or Germany. They believe somehow that you are a black person and you're trying to come into England or Germany and you get very bad treatment from this official in Barbados. And I know that when they come to St. Lucia, they are not treated that way. When you go to Jamaica, I've been through Jamaica, and Jamaica is one of the places where they treat people very well in Jamaica. In fact, most of the Caribbean countries that I have been through, it is just a very good treatment. But in Barbados, they find a way to demoralize and disrespect Caribbean people when you go to Barbados. So, in fact, I got better treatment going through the United States, or anytime I pass through the United States in Trump's country, I get much better treatment than when I go to or through Barbados. And so again, it shows you that when you go, in spite of what you think about President Trump, you get a better experience when you go through immigration in America as compared to when you go through the immigration system in Barbados. Now, President Trump was elected based on the fact that people believe that he will be able to deliver for them. He promised the people that he's going to return jobs to America, he's going to cause companies to come back. And it appears that he is doing that. President Trump believes that the foreigners, a lot of us who go there, are actually depriving low income people in America from getting jobs. He believes that black Americans get better opportunities if there is less competition from people from other countries, especially with regards and reference to low income jobs. So one of Mr. Trump's argument for deportation or for sending people back or for his immigration policy is to provide or to increase the amount of jobs available to low income people and black Americans. So we need to tell ourselves that Trump was elected to serve Americans. For the most part, it is basically American people who are voting for Trump. People who are probably there for generations. Most of the population of America are people who are probably there for more than one generation, perhaps. And so he's saying that his policy is to find a way for his people to get employment. But we Caribbean people are the ones who are suffering in those moves. Nonetheless, his policy and what he's doing is designed to benefit his people. But what is it that our Caribbean people, our Caribbean politicians and leaders are doing to benefit their people? We can see clearly from his policies, Trump, that the unemployment for black people is the lowest that it has been for many years. It is very low. So, in closing, what I can say, Caribbean leaders need to take a page from Trump's playbook. Tell your people that you're coming in to provide employment for them. And by all means, make sure that you do what you tell the people that you're going to do. He told those people that he's going to cause companies to come back. He told them that he's going to increase the employment, and he's actually doing it. Black unemployment is the lowest for many, many, many years. That's what he's doing, and that's what he has done. The Caribbean leaders need to be doing the same. When you tell your people that you're going to do something, do it. Trump told his people that he's going to increase employment. He's going to cause companies to leave China and come to America. He's going to prevent other companies from living by giving them incentives, and he is doing it. Most of the Caribbean leaders, when those guys tell the people that they're doing something, it is just to get them votes. It is just to get their votes, and they really do not do it. Most of those places, they will come and they will try to uh, mama guy and manipulate the poor. In the agricultural belts in these Caribbean countries, they will come and tell you all your mangoes are going to waste, all your oranges are going to waste, all your fruits are going to waste. We need to have factories to can those things. We need to be making juice, and we need to be doing this and that. When you elect those guys, what they do is they get foreign companies to bring in the same things that their people produce very cheaply because they are getting paid to do that. They will take money from a foreign country to allow the same juice and those things to come into your country so that yours cannot sell. They will tell you that you will be able to sell your pigs, your pork, and all of those things. But yet, what they will do is they will allow more companies to come here and sell pork very cheaply to put you out of business. When you elect these guys in the Caribbean, that's what they do. They need to learn from President Trump. President Trump told these people that he's going to bring back jobs. He told them that he's going to give incentive to prevent companies from going to China. And he says he's going to punish those people who insist on doing business in China. And now you see so many companies are staying in America. New companies are starting in America. And there is more jobs, more opportunities for his people in America. This man Trump that we are criticizing and some people are criticizing, he is working for the benefit of his country. His rhetoric might be hard, his ideologies may be strange to some, but this guy, I can see from outside that this guy has his country at heart and is working, and this man Trump is not selling out his country. But a lot of these Caribbean leaders are up for sale. They are up for sale. Sell to the Chinese, they will sell their people, they will sell their culture, they will sell their tradition, they will sell everything, they will sell the seabeds, they will sell the land, they will sell everything. But the people in the community, in the country who needs those very things, they will not entertain you, but they will sell your country for cheap. These Caribbean leaders, they will sell their country for cheap to foreigners. But Trump protects his people and he looks for opportunities for his people. So, when the Caribbean people fix up their mouth to criticize Trump, maybe it might be a better use of our time to really look at those people that we elected in the Caribbean instead of looking at Trump. Look at your people. The Bible says to take out the mole from your eyes so that you can see clearly to take it out of another person's eyes. That's it for now. Keep the fire burning. Take care of yourselves.